Please remain standing and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the National Anthem led by the Concord University Concords. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Susan Williams, Director, Concord University Center in Beckley at the Irma Bird Higher Education Center.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Kreider, for your role as Grand Marshal in today's ceremony. And thank you also, Dr. Kelly Hudson and the Concords for their stirring performance of our national anthem, and Mr. Kip Cortez for our organ prelude. On behalf of Concord University, I welcome you to our Founders Day celebration. Today, we celebrate our 144th year. Once a year, Concord University has the opportunity to celebrate Founders Day, to reflect on the rich legacy and history of the university, and to highlight the dedicated service of our faculty, staff, and students. Thank you for joining us on this very special occasion. It's now my pleasure to introduce Mr. Mike Browning, Regional Coordinator for the Honorable Joe Manchin. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's always an honor to be here at Concord. The senator could not be here because he's in D.C., but he sends a letter on his behalf. On behalf of the citizens of the Mountain State, and as your United States Senator, it is my privilege to welcome the students, faculty, alumni, and supporters attending the 2016 Concord University Founders Festival celebrating 144 years of excellence. Nestled in the beautiful rolling hills of Mercer County, Concord has graced this beautiful region since 1872, when a nation that had been torn apart sought to sew itself back together. The university has indeed been an outstanding mainstay in our home state and has always put an emphasis on giving back to our communities. Concord is known for its wide range of programs, high student enrollment, and outreach in corporate of advancing technology and endless opportunities for community service. Concord's goals have always been to guide and prepare the students of today to succeed in tomorrow's workforce. Ever-changing technology demands that we be prepared to learn this new technology and to not only keep up, but to get ahead so we can continue to build a more advanced state and nation. Many graduates of Concord have gone on to become leaders across the nation. My very dear friend and today's keynote speaker, Judge Omar Abelhausen, is one of these special alumni and an ideal example of what it means to give back to our home state. I thank all of the faculty and administrators who dedicate their careers to ensuring that Concord students receive the best education that will guide them toward their careers and to build the rest of their lives. I appreciate the administration, staff, volunteers, and speakers who made this year's celebration possible. Please accept my best wishes. With warmest regards, Joe Manchin III, United States Senator. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's now my pleasure to introduce Vice President and Academic Dean, Dr. Peter Viscusi.
Thank you, Dr. Kreider, Dr. Williams, Dr. Hudson, and the usual good singing of the Concords, Mr. Cortez, faculty, staff, and students. I would like to take a few minutes to recognize a number of special guests who have joined us today for our ceremony. If you will please stand and remain standing until everyone can be recognized, I'd appreciate it. Senator Sue Klein, West Virginia Legislature. Mark Maynard, West Virginia Legislature. Delegate Marty Gerhardt, West Virginia Legislature. Dr. Jerry Beasley, President Emeritus and friend of the university. Dr. Michelle Gompf, member of the Concord University Board of Governors. Mr. Elliot Hicks, chairman of the Concord University Board of Governors. Ms. Lisa Spencer, Concord University Board of Governors. Mr. Sam Baker, Concord University Alumni Association Council Member. Mr. Tom Bone, Emeritus. Mr. and Mrs. Phil Jeffries, Concord University Alumni Association. Mrs. Deborah Gillespie, President of the Pine Trees Chapter of the Alumni Association, and her husband, Mr. George Gillespie. Mrs. Rose Kessinger, President of the Concord University Alumni Association, and her husband, Mr. Mike Kessinger. Dr. Brad Lane, Concord University Foundation Board Member. Ms. Kay Monahan, Concord University Alumni Association. Mr. Randy Price, Concord University Foundation Board Member. And last but not least, Ms. Ronnie Wood, Student Government President. Thank you for coming. Today we will take a few minutes from our busy schedules to celebrate the founding of Concord University. This year marks the 144th year of that special day. Founders Day is a time when we can celebrate the rich history and promising future of Concord University. It allows us a time to reflect on how our past has shaped who we are and an opportunity to define the goals we have set for ourselves and for the future. We have seen many changes as an institution. Concord was chartered by the state legislature on February 28, 1872, as a branch of the state normal school to offer the normal teaching certificate to those preparing to instruct in area schools. We opened our doors to the first 70 students at the site of Athens School on State Street. The present campus grew from a 26-acre farm plot purchased from the Vermillion family after fire devastated the Midtown location in November 1910. Reflecting continued expansion, the name of our institution changed from Concord State Normal School to Concord State Teachers College in 1931, to Concord College in 1943, and finally to Concord University in 2004. Like those who came before us, we share a deep commitment to and belief in the power of education to make a difference in the lives of our students, communities, and the greater society of West Virginia. Concord has always been a pillar of educational excellence, an institution committed to community service, and a place who welcomes all who come to learn and go to serve. While festival this week for Founders Day was a faculty idea, I would like to actually recognize the two people who did all the work, Laura Woolwine and Trina Stovall. It is a distinct pleasure for me to introduce today's keynote speaker. I believe Judge Abulhassan will be an inspiration to you all. During his time here, Judge Abulhassan was largely responsible for the creation of many of the initiatives that current students today still benefit from. Please join me in welcoming United States Magistrate Judge Omar Abulhassan.
Good afternoon. I said good afternoon. Thank you. I was hoping there was somebody out there. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of the Founders Day event here at Concord. I'm honored to be here. First, I thought I'd tell you what my instructions were that Alicia Bisonnet told me that I was supposed to talk about when I got here in the email that she sent me. My instructions for this speech were to focus on my experience at Concord, to tell you why I decided to come to school here, how it helped me to lead me to the next step in my life, and why I considered it to be a valuable university, and some of the lessons I learned here. So those are my instructions to you, and I'm going to try and meet every one of those so that Miss Besnier doesn't fuss at me after this is over with. Believe it or not, Concord was not my first choice in universities. How did I get on the speakers list? And it wasn't my first choice. Somebody let me slip through the system and let me speak here today. But I'll tell you why this was a good choice. If President Vargas were here, I think she would appreciate this. First, I went to the University of Tennessee in Knoxville to be an architect. And as you know, Dr. Vargas' husband's an architect. There were only two architects I knew back then. One of them was Ted Vargas, and the other one was Mike Brady on the Brady Bunch. And here's what I knew about architecture when I went to the University of Tennessee. I knew that Mike Brady was married, he had 6 kids, a maid, a dog, a nice house, and AstroTurf grass, okay? And I thought, that's what I want. And so that is absolutely the honest truth as to why I wanted to be an architect. I had absolutely no clue about architecture, but that's the reason I went to architecture school at the University of Tennessee. We didn't have an architecture school here in West Virginia, and so I got in-state tuition going to the University of Tennessee. And so that's where I went. And after a couple of quarters, they were on the quarter system down there, I knew that I'd picked the wrong profession, which shouldn't be a surprise after you found out the reason that I decided to be an architect. So I ended my first year at UT, and I decided to come back home and come to Concord. And I decided, since I was good in math in high school, that I would be a math major. And that lasted 4 days. We were doing some review classes in the math classes I took, and I was like, obviously I didn't know math as well as I thought I did. So I then switched. I said, okay, I'm not going to be a math major, but I don't know what I want to do. So I decided to just take some general courses. And somehow, someone put me in a political science class with Dr. George Moore. And it was that point that my life was rocked. I mean, Dr. Moore was absolutely a stunning professor. And I took every Dr. Moore class that I could take after I took his first one. It's hard to explain exactly how Dr. Moore changed my world, but he did in the way he taught, in the way he made learning about political science so interesting, and it just rocked my world. And at that point on, I knew that I was going to take every George Moore class that I could. And if you've had him as a professor, if those of you here who knew Dr. Moore and had him as a professor, you will understand what I mean when I say he was a fantastic professor. There's only one George Moore that I ever experienced in college or law school. And what I mean by that is that the mold was broken after him. He just had a unique way of teaching about political science and the law. Dr. Moore made learning easy yet challenging. He made it fun yet serious. He made you realize that even a dumb kid like me could learn something and learn it well. And I took every George Moore class that I could take. I had the fortune to run into Dr. Moore a few years back before he passed away. And I let him know how huge he was in my career choice and how my world was rocked as a result of it. So he was just as enjoyable and just as warm and friendly when I met him a few years back, and he remembered me, for goodness sakes. He actually remembered who I was. And my memory of him in class, and then when I got to experience him outside of class, it was just as enjoyable. So I ended up majoring in political science with the goal of going to law school. And I decided to also major in speech communications. So I took a speech class with Dr. Ron Berger. Now, exactly. Most people tried to avoid Dr. Berger and his speech class. I took his speech class with fear and trepidation. And as I recall, we came in here and there was a whole bunch of students in here at one time because you had this one weekly meeting with him. And sometimes you have to get up here and give speeches from this very area. So, but by the time I was done taking his speech class, that is when I decided I was going to minor in speech communications, actually. I took every Dr. Berger class that I could take after that, including summer courses and some special projects as well. Dr. Berger challenged me academically more than any professor that I had in college or law school. He opened my eyes, my ears, and my brain to thinking more critically, to look at words and the real meaning behind them. I remember he had this one word. He said, you can take the word rhetoric, if someone uses the word rhetoric, and you can substitute another not so kind word for rhetoric. And I'll let you, 2 words, one starts with B, the other one has. So anytime you hear the word from that point on, anytime I heard the word rhetoric, that's the first words that came into my head. And to this day, and he's right, it doesn't change the meaning of the sentence one iota. And so from here on out, if you hear the word rhetoric you use in a sentence, you'll find out it won't change the meaning if you substitute it for some other words. But he opened up my eyes, my ears, my brain. He made learning the law. I mean, he taught First Amendment law. He taught a lot of constitutional law, and I learned a lot from him as a result of that. In fact, he prepared me well for law school, and I learned more about constitutional law and First Amendment law from him than I think anything I learned in law school, believe it or not. It's really hard for me to overstate how important both Dr. Moore and Dr. Berger were in my future. I didn't realize it then, but I definitely realize it now. Now I've had the opportunity now to also see Dr. Berger and tell him. In fact, a couple years ago, he was here for homecoming, and I waited around for hours just to get to say hi to him so I could let him know how instrumental he was in my career choice. Now, while I was here, while Concord wasn't my first choice, it was by far my best choice. When I started here in the fall of 1986, and I was doing the math on that when I was coming down the turnpike, I was in Beckley today, and I was thinking it was like 20 years ago. And then I realized it was 30 years ago, hence the reason I'm not a math major, okay? It was 30 years ago that I started college here. But when I started here, I decided, I didn't live on campus, but I practically live on campus. I was here for about 18 hours a day. And then I went back home to sleep, and I came back, and I started again. I worked the game room. I was a college center manager. I worked in the bookstore. I ran for student government board of directors. And I was probably the first commuter student in a long time to be elected to that. While I was on the student government, there's 2 things I did as a student government board of directors member. And one of them was an inclement weather schedule. If you ever traveled the Athens Road coming from Princeton when it's snowing and the cars in front of you are going slow and you're sliding on some of those bank curves, you realize you need an inclement weather schedule. So I worked hard to get one passed, and Dr. Beasley was here then, and I tried to get him to name it the OMAR schedule instead of the inclement weather schedule. But I was just glad to get the inclement weather schedule passed, but they didn't go along with the OMAR schedule. But nonetheless, to this day, it's still somewhat used. I mean, it is used. I've seen it on TV. It's probably not the same schedule we did way back then. I was a traditional student, what I consider a traditional student. I don't know if you still call them traditional students versus non-traditional students now, but back then, you know, we didn't have we were just starting on non-traditional students, as I recall. There were people who had gone out in the real world, had some real life experience, and they came back to college afterwards. They may have had children, young children, what have you. But we had started, there was a daycare center that started on the campus then, and it was having some financial troubles to staying open. So one of the things I did, I as a student government board member, I thought my responsibility as a commuter, that it benefited a lot of commuters, that I would try and help the daycare center remain open. So I decided to try and come up with some funding for it. And I started looking at the student fees that we paid as students here. And I realized that there were some organizations that were getting part of their student fees that weren't using it all at the end of each year. And so I decided that back in my conservative days, we could raise some money without raising taxes, okay? So that's it, Marty, don't laugh too hard, okay? So what I did was I went to some organizations. I said, hey, can you give up 25 cents per student, or can you give up 75 cents? And eventually we came up with $3.75, and I need to get the Student Government Board of Directors to pass this so I can give it to the administration, say the student government's on board for it. Well, I counted the votes up on the committee, and there was a 4-4 tie, and the president was going to vote against me. And so I used some parliamentary procedure that I learned through George Moore and Ron Berger. And when one of these who were opposed to me went up and went to the restroom during a long debate, I called the question. And it passed 4-3. And I believe that fee is still part of the student fee to this day, okay? So, but now my favorite job on campus was when I was a student center manager. That job is the greatest job in the entire universe. As a student center manager back 30 years ago, during the summer, we got to take students who were here on campus on horseback riding trips, down to the Barter Theater. We had movies in the valley, and that was my job, to put all that stuff on. I mean, they paid me money to go on horseback riding trips, okay? So I don't know if that's still a position that they still do that in, but that was the greatest job I've ever had, and it was right here at Concord. So my days at Concord were some of the best days of my life. I did not know it then, but looking back at it, they were. There's no question that when I started Concord, I thought I was a failure. I left University of Tennessee, giving up on my Mike Brady dream. I was really pretty low because I really had no clue what I wanted to do with my future. And then I came here and I was a math major for 4 days, and then dropped that. That didn't help boost my confidence any. So once again, I thought I'd failed. However, what I realize now, and what I've known now for some time, is that the doors that I thought were shutting in front of my face were actually the doors that were shutting behind me as I walked through them, because Concord opened up the doors to my future and gave me the success that I was looking for. This is where my success started. Concord is responsible for helping me find my way, to find my direction in this world. And I've been blessed beyond measure because of the education I've received here. I know for a fact that there are many others who credit Concord for opening the world up to them. Did I ever think when I was at Concord that I would someday be a partner in a law firm, become a state court judge, get the opportunity to sit on the Western Supreme Court of Appeals as a temporary justice for 2 cases, and then become a federal magistrate judge? Heavens no. I never thought those things would happen. But that's the beauty of this place. That's the beauty of Concord. Your dreams are just the beginning of where you're going to go. My dream at Concord was to graduate and go to law school. Concord gave me that dream. Being a federal judge was way beyond any expectations that I could ever have imagined. So right now, the mission of this university is being accomplished in the classrooms around this campus. Students have dreams, but they don't realize that Concord will not only make those dreams happen, but will open up doors that will grant them the greatest blessings that they could ever imagine at this time. The university holds so much promise, but we must be vigilant about the forces that want to change what is happening here and that's been happening here for 144 years. I am so grateful to this university and for the role it had in shaping my future and my life. My family is blessed beyond measure because of this university and for what it did for me and my future. And I thank the folks who had a part to play in my role here at Concord. Dr. Beasley was instrumental. I had a close relationship with him. I thought the world of him when he was the president here, and it was just so good to work with him. But I'm a blessed man, and I'm blessed because this university and what it provided to me, I had no clue when I was going to school here of what it would do for me. But when I look back now and I think about where I'm at in my life and what I've been able to accomplish because of the education I got here, I know that I'm a blessed man. Thank you all so very much for the opportunity to be here to address you all. Thank you very much.
We now have a musical performance from the Concord University Concords.
Thank you, Concords and Dr. Hudson, for your performance. Dr. Bogus wishes she could have been here today, but she was not able to join us. She has recorded a greeting that we will play at this time.
Welcome to the Founders Day Festival 2016. I wish I could be there with you, but as I'm speaking today, I'm on my way to my granddaughter's wedding, and so I'm not going to be able to be there with you, but I know it's going to be a wonderful time. To the faculty, staff, and students who've been nominated for awards, I want to congratulate you. We read each and every nomination, and they were heartfelt, they were sincere, and they certainly were touching. It sure speaks to the amount of respect that you have for one another, and I appreciate each of your nominations. I think that they all speak to the great work that's being done on campus and to the spirit that has and will sustain Concord well into the future. Congratulations to each person who was nominated, and congratulations to those of you who received the Presidential Excellence Award. Have a wonderful day today and great fun at the first annual Founders Day Festival.
It is not often that we take the opportunity to recognize the individuals who make Concord the place we all call home. We would like to take a few moments to acknowledge several individuals whose dedication to Concord, its mission, and most importantly, its students, merits nomination for the Presidential Excellence Awards. It has been both an honor and a challenge to choose among the numerous and worthy nominations. As I read the nominees for each of the categories of awards, please stand as your name is called and remain standing. The Faculty Presidential Excellence Award nominees are Dr. Dana Alloway, Mr. Kevin Bennington, Mr. Joe Blankenship, Mr. Lonnie Bowe, Dr. Charles Bridgeford, Dr. Sarah Brown, Ms. Angela Fideli, Dr. Cindy Conlarian, Dr. Kathy Liptak, Dr. Christopher McLean, Dr. Wes Batir, Dr. Terry Mullins, Ms. Lori Pace, Dr. Lori Reedmiller, Dr. Anita Reynolds, Dr. Alicia Standley, Dr. Santina St. John, Dr. Susan Williams, Dr. Darla Wise. Congratulations, all of you nominees. Will the winners please come forward together and receive your plaques? And the winners are Dr. Dana Alloway, Dr. Cynthia Conlarian, Dr. Christopher McLean. If faculty are participating at the pedometer contest, this is extra. Congratulations. You got to go all to the right side. Okay. Thank you. The Classified Staff Presidential Excellence Award nominees are Mr. William Bailey, Mrs. Bonnie Brown, Mrs. Tammy Brown, Mrs. Mitzi Klein, Mrs. Linus Hill, Mrs. Sarah Johnson, Mrs. Christy Lamb, Mrs. Susie Lusk, Mrs. Amy Pitzer, Mrs. Barbara Rush, Mr. Wes Ward, Mr. Alvin White. Congratulations on all you nominees. The winners of this award in this category is Mrs. Bonnie Brown, Mrs. Christy Lamb, Mrs. Susie Lusk, and Mrs. Amy Pitzer. The non-classified Staff Presidential Excellence Award nominees are Dr. Cheryl Barnes, Dr. Sarah Beasley, Mr. Jamie Boggs, Mrs. Elizabeth Cahill Music, Mr. Steve Meadows, Mrs. Sarah Turner. Congratulations, nominees. The winners in this category are Mr. Jamie Boggs, Mrs. Elizabeth Cahill Music, and Mr. Steve Meadows. Please come forward.
Just came out of nowhere. Sorry.
Thank you. Chuck should have been here today. The Student Presidential Excellence Award nominees are Ms. Carly Brewer, Mr. Ryan Jenkins, Mr. Eric Lopez, Mr. Adam Miller, Ms. Keegan Nealon, Ms. Gretchen Reese, Mr. James Riley, Ms. Heather Romage, Mr. Jaden Shepard, Ms. Brittany Struther, and Ms. Ronnie Wood. The winners in this category are Ms. Carly Brewer and Mr. Adam Miller. Congratulations. The Auxiliary Staff Presidential Excellence Award nominees are Mrs. Anna Bell, Mr. Randy Jones, Mrs. Dreama Richardson, Ms. Gurney Taylor. The winners in this category are Mrs. Dreama Richardson and Ms. Gurney Taylor. It's like dreaming to change the order. Congratulations. Congratulations. As we celebrate Founders Day, we extend to you our continued commitment that Concord University will remain the place for excellence and accomplishment that would astound and delight those founders who have come before us. It was their dream, the preparations and sacrifices they made for our students' achievements to be fulfilled. It is important for us to come together on occasions like Founders Day, not only to remember, to acknowledge, and to thank those people who have come before us, but to also give ourselves a chance to reflect on the triumphs that take place every day here at Concord University. I sincerely thank you all for having taken the time to join us today and looking forward to seeing you often on the campus beautiful.
Please stand for the alma mater. The words can be found on the back cover of your program. We will be led by the Concord University Concords. Please join us for a reception and faculty art show in the Alexander Fine Arts Lobby. The audience may be seated. The faculty will remain standing for the recessional.